All right. Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing today? It's WineShark Wednesday once again. And joining you here from WineShark Central. It's been a very busy day of content writing and fun other things. So I want to say hello to everyone. To give you guys a little bit of what's new, I've been figuring out a solution to improve our background and YouTube studio here. So we're going to be working on getting a new bit of coordination with a new desk and some backdrop, and that way we don't have to have the spotted menace intruding on the video when ever he so pleases. So, well, hello there to John, and to hello to Dave and Mary. How is everybody? Good to see you guys on the channel for visiting us. Get yourself a glass of wine and settle in. Miss Roth, Jennifer, how are we? Glad to see everybody on this very fine spring or afternoon here. Miss Donna Den, hello again. Welcome. Some of our newest subscribers and some of our newest Patreons. Thank you all so very, very much. So yeah, we're gonna work on improving the studio space here a little bit. Things have been slowly progressing as far as that's concerned. Really happy with the way things are going. You guys have been so amazingly supportive, and we're having a great time. We're learning a lot, and all together, I mean, just got to say, this has just been a really cool and interesting journey. I mean, I've been doing the world of wine for quite some time, but in this particular interactive format, it's been something I've always enjoyed, and really I've enjoyed exploring into the things that are kind of going on. So, hey there, Mr. Teach. Welcome back to another Wednesday. Grab yourself a glass, settle in. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I gotta say, it's pretty impressive. We're going to be working. I doing my first private virtual tasting. I discussed a little bit of that, I think, last week. I'm not sure if it was on WineShark Wednesday or whether it was on the show on Friday. But I'll be setting up pricing up on WineShark. If you want to host a Zoom party with just your friends and not the whole general public of all of my friends, you are welcome to have something custom set up. Plus, it allows you to do custom selections of wines and possibly foods and whatnot, pairings, and we can do all kinds of interesting and neat things together with the format. So stay safe and healthy together. Have fun apart rather than together is what we're doing. But it's pretty fun. I'm really excited with what some of the opportunities are. So, without further, we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about wine clubs and some of the pros and the cons. And I'm going to talk to you about a bunch of different types for a bunch of research that I did. We're going to talk about the grocery store grab today is the Freakshow Chardonnay. Very fun. One of my favorite producers, Michael David. So we're going to try out their entry into the category. It's a new song for them. And we're going to talk just a little bit about it. Of course, answer your comments, questions, Q&A. Please feel free to post them there in chat. If I'm rambling at a time, I may have to come back to it. So don't mind me if I get off on a tear. So let's talk about wine clubs. Let's talk about the concept of getting wine by mail. Obviously, in these here present times, this has become something that has increased in popularity, I would argue. But simple delivery of booze has risen throughout the United States. The availability, the opportunities. Here in Texas, even some of the laws on picking up or having wine delivered from various parties have been relaxed due to the shelter-in-place and stay-at-home orders. So it's been very, very interesting. So to say the least, though, there are a wide variety of types of clubs out there, and you may be confused by this surfeit of options here. So we're going to talk a little bit about what those are. Most people, when we think about wine clubs, the first thing they think of are what I would call winery direct wine clubs. If you go to visit a winery or have a favorite winery, almost every winery that I know has some sort of direct-to-consumer wine club. And they may have it at several different tiers, but basically it's exclusive access to exclusive wines of theirs. Almost always their regular catalog. Additionally, you might find things like exclusive to club member only options. They may often offer you discount pricing for club members. And if you happen to be a local or nearby them, they often have club member events or special offers. And it's kind of like, it's being in the in crowd, right? And it's an excellent advantage for wineries because, as we'll talk about a little bit later with the 18th Amendment, and post-prohibition, the three-tier system of producer, distributor, retailer, then you, has been put into place. And so a lot of money goes into paying that middle road. In other words, what a winery has to sell its wine at for a distributor and a retailer to then make the money before getting to you means that they're not getting their best price. So oftentimes by selling direct to the consumer, they're making themselves a better percentage and a better margin, which is good because it supports your winery. So showing your wine love for a particular winery is an excellent thing to do. The pros here are you have access to limited and club-only wines. There are certain wines that nobody else has offered, and which can be a very cool experience. You can get introduced to stuff that, well, you're just not going to get at your local store. The cons are, of course, that the varieties are limited to what that producer happens to be producing. You can't really go past. You're not going to really explore a wide variety. It's almost like saying, you're following just that one band in a musical tone. So Mary points out that wine clubs are how she gets most of her Texas wines up in Minnesota. Excellent. Perfect example. We're going to talk about shipping a little bit later. Rob says that the first rule of wine club is that you do not talk about wine club. There is no. You just don't talk about it. It's also the third and seventh rule because, well, we don't have as many rules as Fight Club, really. So, but yeah, Winery Direct, excellent way to support your wineries. Highly recommend it. The next thing are what I call Winery Indirect. These are services that work with wineries to help promote their wines in that same thing. They're kind of what I would call virtual distributors. They aren't traditional distributors in the sense that they serve a local area and they work directly with either retailers or restaurants and end users and consumers for their services. Instead, these kind of tend to be larger national or international organizations that help get you access to wines that you may not normally have access to. Some of them are also work on the investment side of things, etc. So you have stuff like Naked Wines, for instance. NakedWines.com is direct to and from a winery focus. They have what they call their angel investors, which is and the focus is on getting good value. You start at $50 to enter, and you get you get a case of like at $9 a bottle. And then you basically commit to spending $40 per month that you'll get credit on for later wines. It's what they call their angel investors. And it is basically like that kind of concept of capital investment, of an angel investor being just a nice little windfall of somebody who cares about you. And so that's what they call their members, right? It's a good value kind of priced. And again, it's a way to directly support wineries. Underground Cellar. There's an example where you throw in a certain amount of level that you want to play at, and they basically have a kind of lottery system, a random chance that you're going to buy a bottle at price X, let's say $40, and you might, and depending on whatever whim, roll of the dice, some guy with a blindfold, mystery on how they decide, you might instead receive a much, much higher value bottle of wine. So this is a case where, you put in for $40, you might get a $400 bottle of wine. So if you enjoy that gambling thing, it's got a value proposition. If you like the state of chance, Underground Cellar might be something interesting and fun. You can't really rely on it. I don't consider it a way to really kind of explore wines, but it's definitely something for those where if you're all about that prestige wine, that allocation, and that hard to find stuff, it might suit your need. Other examples that are a little bit more mundane are things like Berg Direct. Berg Direct is literally a Burgundy Direct concept. They are devoted towards bringing you wines from a specific region, probably, and although they don't explicitly state it, I would guess they do a lot with direct from the wineries. They are the distributor in the United States, but they're very much about their prestige line, and their prices range from $360 for a half case to, kind of works at about up to $60 a bottle in some cases. It's even more. You could even spend a heck of a lot more with them. You buy $2,700 Burgundy allocations. Again, opportunity here is all about the fact that you may not be able to get those wines in any other way, and that's the kind of exclusives. So those are winery indirects, right, where you have a middleman kind of working with different wineries. They vary, and again, they vary from, some of them are value, some of them are elite and luxury. Just depends. The next thing are what we call private label wines. The examples I've got here are Abbott's Passage Winery and Mercantile, or Viticole. Abbott's Passage is a side project of Gunlock Bunchu, a winery we're certain to touch on here on the show sooner or later. They're one of my favorites. But they are a separate what we call white label wine. They make wines, and they work with specific other wineries to bottle them under their own label. Right. And so they run between the $35 to $50 range. Right. They're not wildly expensive, but they're definitely in that high middle class, that upper end of the quality spectrum. But again, they're working with direct sales. They're playing on exclusivity. Viticole is a project by master sommelier Brian McClintock, a total hero of mine and industry badass, rock star, kind of cool guy. Follow him on Instagram. It's all about the hair. He's the hair and the stupidly cool wine smarts. But he works directly with wineries and vineyards to produce wines in exclusive lots for just his club members. So you can get on his list. They basically send offerings only 2 times a year. You pay $60 a month, so it comes out to about $30 a bottle. But these are these amazing artisanal, sustainable wines and ciders that he gets from places that you're never going to have access to. So again, if you're in the mode for something that's just kind of fun and you want to show off, hey, look, I've got this bottle of rarity, that's cool, right? You're never going to see that stuff at the grocery store or liquor store or anywhere else. So that's private labeling. Then we have what I call mixed sale or access clubs. These are things like Ventures, Bricks 26, or wineaccess.com. And in these, what you get is there are different usually different levels that you can participate at, either 2, 6, or 12 bottles a month, anywhere, kind of at the $25 a month level. That's Ventures. Bricks 26 is a California exclusive version of that, where you get $20, $40, and $90 levels and you can shop directly via their store. Wine Access is more of a store model with a focus on allocation wines, meaning to define that, I didn't earlier, I apologize. Allocation just means that there's a limited quantity and a much higher demand, right? So they parcel out where they're going to go. And so many of these wines get driven up in price because you've got 1,000 people that want 500 bottles of wine, or, by the way, even 10 times those numbers, where you got, a 500 case run of a wine that thousands and thousands of people want to get a hold of. So those mixed sale or access clubs, again, are opportunities where spending seems to be about low to medium, and they're generally speaking trying to get you hooked in the, hey, look, you can only find this here kind of model. So then the last group are what I call choice clubs or curated lists. Okay, these are things like First Leaf, Wine Insiders, and Senses Wines. These are ones that are kind of cool because they offer opportunities to kind of dig into your flavor profile, dig into what you like, or at the very least say, hey, look, we've got this professional that does this, and we're going to offer that opportunity to see this list curated by our awesome in-house guy. So First Leaf, for instance, it's all about profile matching. You tell them what you like, they give you a range of stuff, they give you you rate stuff, and you bring it back. They're all about consistent value. A lot of the stuff that they talk about runs at the $15 a bottle level. The Wine Insiders, same thing. You got a lot of choices. They offer a satisfaction guarantee for their wine they ship you. They're all about $10 to $15 a bottle value range, right? Senses Wines, on the other hand, was join the list and you get an offer twice a year at a certain level. Now, when I explored that, there's no way to tell what the offer was because it only happens a couple of years. So I don't know what they're playing with at the value level, whether they're at that medium level or whether that elite or luxury level. But again, these I think are excellent choices for those people that want to explore wine, right? Because what they do is they take your profile of your that you put up, they take your ratings and your opinions into account, and then try and serve you up wines that you're going to enjoy. I mean, Wine Insider is going so far as to give you a satisfaction guarantee. That's pretty darn powerful, if you ask me. So kind of neat, kind of cool. So those are kind of the broad scales, direct, indirect, private label. Then you got access clubs and mixed sale, and then you've got choice clubs or curated list. So with all that in mind, one of the primary things here is all these clubs have one thing in common, and that is their wine is shipping to you. So shipping can be a challenge. In the description below for the show today, I will link an organization that I'm very fond of supporting called freethegrapes.org. And Free the Grapes basically is a legal organization, advocacy, and legislative organization that goes and advocates for wineries to be able to ship directly to consumers, to bypass archaic laws about how wine gets to you. This is because local wine law varies so very much. Thanks to the stupid 18th Amendment and the invention of prohibition, and just a simple way of how our Constitution works, upon repeal of prohibition, the individual areas, including the states and then later county localities, were allowed to decide how and when they wanted to implement the particular rules, reinstating the sale of liquor. So while that's a very good at the, local government is highly in control, it's what creates a consumer frustratingly patchwork quilt of you can buy wine here, but you can't buy wine there, bullshit. And that's basically what it is. I mean, when I became of drinking age and I was living in Central Texas in San Antonio area, it was an area that was pretty wide open. We didn't have any dry counties around that we had to deal with. But as soon as I moved up to Dallas in the early 2000s, all of a sudden I found this thing where on that side of the street you can buy wine, but on that side you can't. You go 4 streets down this way and change city municipalities, and now you can't buy wine or beer anymore because of reasons. So this all goes back to the teetotaler movement, goes back to the what they call the blue laws and how they repealed and re-implemented the sale of alcohol. If you believe that it's about anything except money, you would be wrong, because it is not about morality. It is about the fact of putting that middleman in place, and the distribution layer that came about after Prohibition was very much driven as if we were illegally importing the stuff during Prohibition, we don't want to lose all that money. So a lot of interested parties created businesses for themselves by demanding that, we couldn't be responsible enough to get the product directly from the producer. We've got to put somebody in there in charge in the middle. So we still have a partially dry county. Yeah, that's what here in Texas we call them damp. So it's beer and wine and no liquor. Yeah, so damp counties are that middle ground where I think they have a maximum of 14.7% alcohol by volume, which is odd because that means, for instance, at some stores you can't buy port because or even some bigger Cabernet Sauvignons because they exceed the appropriate ABV. How weird is that? So there's an example, though. So as an example, getting wine shipped to you is a problem. So for many years, wineries wouldn't ship to people in various states simply because county and local laws were so confusing. It wasn't like they could say they can't ship to Texas. They've been able to ship to Texas for years. The problem is local county laws were so archaic, they weren't willing to deal with the problems, right? They weren't willing to deal with the paperwork overhead, potential liability, and legal consequences. So Free the Grapes battles that kind of just innocuous stupidity. So bravo for them, support them, great charity. I'll put a link in the description below. In Texas, by the way, as example, you have to be 21, you have to be sober, and you have to be present to sign for your wine order. That can be a problem. In-person receipt can be problematic, not because you're under 21 and not because you're not sober, but still it's because you may have a job, and not be shipping to your home or be shipping to your home and not be there too. So it's very odd to have that factor. It can't be dropped off. They want to know that the person receiving it is there. So it can be a pain in the butt. One of the wine clubs that I was a part of, for instance, in fact, Michael David, the wine that we're featuring today, I stopped my affiliation with their wine club simply because of two reasons. Number one, most of the wines that I was getting at the level I was playing, I was able to get at fairly easily at local stores. So they were well priced, well available. I still love their product, but why that in the end, even with the discount I was getting with the shipping and having to go 9 times out of 10, I would have to go pick it up myself over at the FedEx where they held it for me. So it became less convenient. And so when I canceled with them, I told them, I'm like, it's not because I don't love your product. It's just not convenient for shipping. So consider that within your wine club thing. Many friends of mine, several of them I know, have their stuff shipped directly to their office or place of work. Can be good and can be convenient. Or, if you're working home or things like that, or maybe if a pandemic comes around, you'll always be around to get for your wine. How cool is that? So let's see. John was saying they live in a damp town and the highway is a full liquor. Yeah, across the highway, full liquor store. Yeah, very odd, like no buying before noon on Sunday. I mean, again, a lot of it had to go back to teetotal movements. I mean, here's a fun note about blue laws that you may or may not have known. It didn't just apply in many towns. It didn't just apply to liquor. I've heard stories of drugstores, for instance, where they would sell women's nylons and stockings, and they would have to cover up those sections of the counter during Sundays as not to offend the church crowd. So blue laws were not all just about liquor. They had a lot of things that went in with it as well. So anyway, conclusions about wine clubs. The answer here is, which one of these things is right for you? Are you an explorer? Are you looking for new things? Are you just looking to get elite stuff to show off to your friends and explore that way? Are you really looking for hard to find things, or just support your favorite winery? There's lots of different flavors and ways to do it. I got some great feedback from my fans prior to this. Thank you guys so much for your feedback and input. Some specific examples of where customer service seems to be one of the primary things that I heard back about. I mean, the people that were willing to work with you on your order, to take orders back or to make orders right. That was really the hallmark of a lot of this. Again, it also goes to what can you afford. Some of these price ones, I mean, you need to balance how much you're spending at your wine club versus what you would normally spend, to get the other issues. So, the pros there's access, there's convenience, and there's cost considerations. You can save money. But on the cons, there are delayed gratification. Your wine is not right there. You don't get to take it home and try it right now. And the other side, of course, is cost considerations. It's not necessarily any cheaper than just shopping locally. So Donna says that she liked ours because you like the wine and get it for a discount. Exactly. If your discount is good, and you figure out that you're saving out on your per bottle prices, that's awesome. I mean, that's a great reason to continue working with those people. Absolutely. Or like I said, if you want to dive into the deep end of the pool, I found a couple places here that if you want to, blow a mortgage level on wine every month, I can show you how. So anyway, so yeah, that's the thing is, tell me, so when you guys get a chance, talk to me in the comments below afterwards. Tell me about what your wine experiences were. Share with the group. It'd be freaking awesome. Now let's going to go on to the grocery store grab. It's time to talk about wine. That's one of my favorite things. Ooh. And man, I'm just preview. Good stuff. So let's talk about what the grocery store grab is. For those that are just joining us, the grocery store grab premise is to help you get the best value per dollar for wines that are found at non-specialty and non-big box retailers. Not everybody has the luxury of having a Total Wine, a Specs, a Siegel's, a Goody Goody, whoever they happen to be, of a large a retailer with a broad wine selection. Many folks, either for convenience or out of necessity, have to shop at their grocery stores for wine. And so we talk about strategy about how to get the best bang for your buck there and not get taken advantage of. So I select the wines without prior research. In other words, unlike wines that I'm doing for tastings, I'm not digging into the technical sheets, the notes, the whole background of the region, that kind of thing. I'm basically using what I know already, but mostly I'm focusing on the labels themselves and what do the labels tell me about the wine, and does that help you, a consumer on the learning scale, get better at helping pick wine for that stuff. So this week's selection was the Michael David Freak Show. Was as a store list price of $21.99 and a club sale price of $16.99. So that was a not abnormal drop. About $5 is usually that's within the normal what I would call price range for club store model wines. We've talked on the show before about highly inflated wines to make them look discounted versus this is just the usual incentive to say, hey, join our club because we will pay you for your marketing information. So let's talk about the label. So the label here, right? 22 on sale for $17.99. Okay, excellent. So yeah, this is good. So Michael David. So again, this is a little bit of where I'm kind of crossing that line a little between just labeling. Although it was absolutely the label that attracted me. I know this brand. I'm a very big fan of their Petite and their Freakshow Cab Sauv. By the way, so when I saw the Circus label and the new blue on a bottle of white wine, I was immediately attracted, and so I wanted to try out this next thing. I mean, to use, I'm very fond of analogies, and to use the analogy, this is, your favorite artist comes out with a new album, you need to go try it and see what it's like, right? So this is pretty classic when I talk about Chardonnay. So their label on the front is focused on the whole circus theme. This is what they call their circus series of wines: Freakshow, basically Freakshow, Strong Arms, Petite, etc. So this is so you got your fun mermaid up in the front and all kinds of attractive whatnot. It does on the front label, by the way, says who it's from, Michael David. It says that it's their 2018 Chardonnay. It says it is from Lodi, right? And the goddess of the sea is the featured freak on the Freak Show. Here on the back, they even make a kind of fun label on the back label here, where they've got the ticket-looking back label. But let's see what valuable information we have here. It says admit one, which I will take to mean this is a single serving size. No, you may not have any of mine. It says vintage in a bottle by Michael David Winery, Groton, California, contains sulfites and a government warning. This is an example where, while I love Michael David and I know they make good wine, this label fails the label test completely. It doesn't tell me anything about what's in the bottle. It doesn't tell me how I should expect it to taste. It doesn't tell me what style of Chardonnay they're aiming at. It doesn't tell me anything about fruit flavors. It doesn't tell me anything about specific food pairings. None of it. So they're relying strictly at, oh, look, this looks fun. Go ahead and put this in your mouth. Well, guess what? At the $16.99, $17.99 price point, that's not a risk that most new to wine drinkers are going to do. That's one of the disadvantages we here in the wine world have compared to the beer world. Beer world, you can go get a mix 6 and pick up a single bottle of beer for a couple bucks, right? Your risk, if you don't like it, is pretty darn low. But when you start getting to that close to that $20 price point, people start to think, how else could they have spent their money? And are they willing to risk this, or are they going to go with something they know? Now, again, many new to wine people just pick wines because of the pretty picture on the front. That's not a problem. I mean, it's no different than any other Madison Avenue marketing or mating game that you're used to. See something that attracts you, go ahead and try it, put it in your mouth. Sometimes it works, sometimes not so much. So I knew that Michael David makes good juice. I took the risk, but when I saw this label, I was kind of disappointed because basically the only thing they're telling me on the back is the mandatory stuff, and only thing that they're telling me on the front is the minimum level. So, Michael David, I love you, but you're better than this. The back label is the spot where you owe me info. Be a better curator. Educate your customers. Free your mind and your glass will follow. Do my thing. So let's see. I'm gonna go back to the comments here. Said, "Don't lie, you like the mermaid." Damn, I like the mermaid. It's my good luck charm. So, as Corey said, he had the petite. By the way, which you're spelling that wrong, Corey, and that is not to be pedantic. But the fun part is it's a mix of petite, the small word, which is little, and petite with it, which is the name for the Petite Syrah grape. And because it's Petite Verdot and Petite Syrah, and they're actually spelled different, which is weird. But cool. Fun fact. Party winner. Something like that. Anyway, so David saw this one last week and passed on it until I set up the grocery grab. telling you, they don't do Chardonnay much in Lodi. This is not one of the things there that the MD crowd is known for yet, right? They're all big Zinfandels, Cabernets, Petit Verdot, Petit Syrah, big reds, juicy, jammy, awesome fruit bombs. So let's do the tasting notes. We got 3 questions we're going to ask here. Is it well executed? Is it on style? And is it worth the price tag? We're going to do the basic kind of 4S tasting and kind of give it a little standard kind of wine note. Color right here is a solid deep gold and strong, deep gold to straw. It is, pale, no, perfect reflection, no problems whatsoever. Delightful color, looks right on style. I mean, definitely in that medium bold range. Nose is got that fruit forward leaning with maybe some yellow apple or pear. It's got a little hint of acidity or citrus on the nose, and a definite kind of I get a little bit of hint of the alcohol that's burning in off this. I'll check the ABV in a minute, but I bet it's pushing 13 or more. Yeah, I'd say 13, 14 maybe. I mean, wouldn't be surprised that it's coming off the nose like that, but definitely smells like a big boy. Smells like it is not going to be a lightweight in your mouth at all. Definitely coming off the glass. So that's, there's a nice little hint there of maybe white flour, but nice. Okay, so let's see what we got on the sip. All right, bracing full mouthfeel, Chardonnay on style, right? You got definitely have that full round mouth, mostly middle and sides of your tongue, very little on the front. Good and dry with a bit now of more of a peach or pitted fruit in the front of the tongue. Get some lingering caramel and toast flavors from the oak that kind of follow up the finish. Primary flavors, though, are definitely gold apple, hints of Meyer lemon. It doesn't have high crisp mouth bracing acidity, but there's enough to make a very pleasant drink. So it's not been malolactically knocked to hell. It's not a butter toasty thing, right? There's that tiny hint of oak in the background, but there that gold apple and kind of note right there, that strong fruit flavor. And then in the finish is where you start to get that heat, a little bit of the residual heat from that alcohol content. Nice kind of warm and toasty. This defines, good full bodied white. And it's not beating me up with some of the broadly stereotypical California Chardonnay bad problems, the ABC crowd, the anything but Chardonnay crowd. There's enough juice in here and acidity to really kind of make this a wine that's approachable, fun, that food friendly, but you're gonna have to put your guns up and get in there with this wine. It's not for delicate things. That those flavors are very dominant. That alcohol is prominent. So you're gonna want some fat to kick back things. This is where skin on grilled chicken. I would even say this could probably stand up to lemon pepper and fun, spicy things like that. I would go for, some hearty vegetables and salads that could go with this. Any place you'd put an apple within something, follow it up with this. You might find some fun with playing around with walnuts and almonds and nutty flavors to fill in the middle of your palate. Stay away from sweet stuff, right? And bracingly other acidic stuff, because it'll show up the wine and you'll find yourself kind of in a train wreck in your mouth. I wouldn't go there. Check out the chat here. Like I said, we definitely got some agreement on apple, some notes of pepper from Jennifer. Lemon peel said that might be the pith there. I could see where you got it. The flavor on my mouth was those very definitely not a ripe, or it was an overly ripe lemon, and that Meyer lemon, the sweeter end of the scale. It doesn't have that, lemon slice in your mouth cut of acidity. The acidity is way lower presenting than that. And green apple, that's that malic acid profile, right? We love that malic. Remember when we say malolactic, that's what we're doing. We're changing malic acids into lactic acids. The kind of four major acids we find in wine. Malic is that green apple one. Lactic is that buttercream or cheese thing. And while still acidic, you got kind of a fun blend with that Waldorf salad mix. You know what it would also, now that you mentioned that, John, I mean, what would be interesting, I'd love to see how this kind of goes with some blue cheese, some bacon, some red onions on a wedge. This would be an interesting high punch breath, food cleanser to go with that. All right, so let's see if my ABV sense was on. Yep, 13.5 ABV. So definitely on the muy fuerte. As if on cue, there's the spotted menace come to grace us with his presence on the show. Hey, Laszlo, say hi. Hello. All right. So, is it well executed? Absolutely. This is great. I would totally drink this again. On style Chardonnay. It is on style. Well, they didn't tell me what style they were aiming for, but in a non-stereotypical California Chardonnay from, say, Sonoma, northern end of the, Calistoga, northern end of the Napa, not quite Los Carneros maybe, but this is well executed and I would say stylistically good. I think that they should tell me more what they were aiming at. That way I can say whether they landed there. And is it worth the price tag? This is one of those, it's in a pretty high competition zone there. In between 10 to 15 and 15 to 20, you're in that really interesting line between value points. And I think that if you're a price conscious consumer, and now remember, this is a grocery store level, so I guarantee you can find this for cheaper, or I bet you will find this for cheaper at a major big box wine retailer. They're going to get a bulk discount, and you're probably going to shave a couple of dollars off that. That might mean the difference in this for some people. The fact that this might be a $15 wine, not a $20 bottle of wine. But, again, it really depends. What are you doing with that $2? If you're depending, is it going to blow your wine budget? Probably not. But are you going to make a different choice that's $4 cheaper because you like it better and it displays the same or the similar properties? Maybe. I will definitely be trying this out with some food and seeing where that piece goes with things. I want to see what this can do and dance around food, because that malic acid's a fun thing to play with. Here's one. Green apple pico de gallo. Take a Granny Smith apple, dice it to a medium dice. Green onions, tomatoes, a little bit of fresh pepper and salt. Mix it all in and let it kind of break down and let those acids kind of all work together, and then serve that over a piece of grilled fish or pork. Dribble it on there, and then melt over some Monterey Jack or Havarti cheese. Now we're talking about playing with that apple flavor range and really backing into that in a complementary kind of way. Contrast-wise, if you're going to go the opposite direction, that's where I think some things with some pungency, maybe some smokiness, might play around with that caramel and oak in the back of the mouth. As this is getting warmer, I'm starting to get more of that in presentation. Temperature-wise, I'm on the high end of where I want to be right now. This has been out of the fridge for 38 minutes now, so it's now coming to a point where I need, notes to self, WineShark needs to order himself a desk side wine chiller. If you guys have never seen these, though, you get them in either terracotta sometimes, or some the more fancier ones will be basically like a thermos lined one. But the good old fashioned classic style were terracotta pot, and they're in this long cylinder. What you do is you fill the thing with ice water, or as cold water as you could get a hold of, and then you let it soak for a few minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes, pour that out, and then you take your wine out of the fridge and you drop it in there. And by that evaporative process, it helps keep the wine nice and cool. No mess, no fuss with ice in a bucket. No, which, by the way, putting your wine on ice in a bucket's generally going to have it at a too cold temperature, right? There's a fun little one, when your waiter comes by, your ice bucket, that sits on the side of your table in a high hat, your wine should sit on top of it, barely touching the ice, not be buried down in it, ice cold, as at least if you're trying to serve white wine at its optimal temperatures, which usually range from anywhere between 38 to 50 degrees, right? You don't want to be jamming it down there in an ice bath and shaking it around like you're trying to steal a kidney or anything. That's not your goal. I mean, it might be your goal. That would be weird. But still, organ donorship and theft aside, you don't want to be running it around in a deep dark ice bath. So Janet said, Mary says it's not a $22.99 bottle of wine, but that's the thing, Mary. That's where even at the club price, we only had it was only $16, right, or $17. So that's where I think that the actual price is not. At grocery stores, we've talked about how they pay for your marketing ability. They're willing at those club store prices. I would agree that at $22.99, at $33 a bottle, I would be asking for a little bit more out of my wine. Jennifer's saying that Chardonnay is tough for you. You go cheaper, but you like malolactic. You like butter bomb. Exactly. This is off your style. This is still a little bit more fresh. You want that. If you want that buttercream thing, you can go that. And the weird thing is, getting good malolactic or balanced malolactic without over oaking below the $30 price point is sometimes not easy. But if you want to go into that Los Carneros and Butterbomb style, stuff like Rombauer and who else is on that list? Bessinger makes a pretty good example thereof. Sterling guy's got a great one. San Clement's version is great. These are places all across the middle of the Napa Valley. But then you get down around the hook, and anybody who's sourcing grapes around Los Carneros, which is the sheeps, the bababas, the rams, you'll get a little bit more of that warm style and buttery type stuff. The key is, though, to get it at a reasonable price point. So Corey's saying that at $15.99 before mix 6 discount at Total Wine. So yeah, there you go. You're getting it for $15 at a wine retailer. Not our goal here at the grocery store, but now you know the difference, right? That's one of those things. Mary said that there's 100-mile difference between her and Total Wine. Yeah, that would definitely be for a rather difficult sell, I could imagine. And Rob says they ordered a pair of wine sleeves that have a thin, soft ice packets to have. Oh, nice. That's kind of fun. That's very sharper image kind of thing. I've got some gel packs that I keep in a cooler, a picnic style cooler, which basically lets the wine stay cool and dry. But that's the thing, is you want it dry. You don't want it directly contact with ice and water. Not only does it mess up and start to screw with the label and all that other stuff, it's just messy. So yeah, Rob has got a great solution there with those sleeves that have, basically gel packs that don't cause much except for condensation. So it's always kind of nice. All right. So Reba said something about Chardonnay from your mother in the 80s. There you go. Buttery Parmesan Chardonnay. Yeah, I can imagine. That's a deal. That's where we went through that period where oak was king, and it is one of those kind of. I think it's a stereotype for a reason. It's something that a lot of people dislike and will never come back to the grape because they associate that with the grape. One of the things I'm a big champion for is to help people understand that the grape is not to blame. You have a combination of style of the winemaker, and you have a combination of regional differences, and finding that harmony is awesome. Again, to me, it's like saying, well, I don't like any music with a tuba. And I'm like, well, come on, man. We've got to go to Wurstfest and allow me to show you that the tuba can be an amazingly happy instrument. So I was going to use something broader like the piano, but that's too easy. So Donna said he went to a wine tasting in Lodi back in the 70s, and it was so fun. Well, interesting. I mean, boy, back in the 70s, that's also before where Lodi was that sleeper area of California. But yeah, I mean, no, I don't think you had more fun than you should have had. You might have had more wine than you should have had, but still. The idea of Lodi is in a very interesting wine growing region. It's one of the places that we have that I've taken folks on to tour. And if you guys ever join us on one of the tours, I'll take you through several different places. One of the places we were actually going to go was Michael David, but we had to cancel because of some flight problems. But we went to Lang Twins. I've had the privilege of meeting Randy Lang, and he gave us a personal tour of the space. He's an amazing human. Talk about the Lodi rules, their sustainability model throughout the entire region. Scotto Vineyards, Clinker Brick, Michael David, all these guys are great. just great farmers who are stewards of the craft and producing some of the kind of what I would definitely call some of the most underrated, because they don't have that prestige of their Napa cousins, but they're making pretty badass juice for a lot of places that people know that wouldn't realize that their grapes are coming from Lodi. And that's an interesting factor in a lot of high quality wine. So, Reba, I will gladly send you any Chardonnay recommendations. Like I said, post that thing in the comments so that we can reply to it there for posterity, because not everybody can see the chat unless they watch throughout the whole video. So there's that. So anyway, question marks. Q&A time, right? It's the last kind of quarter hour here. What kind of questions do you guys have for me? What's been going on in your wine world? What kind of funkiness have you encountered? Any fun wine stories, history, things like that? Be glad to answer your questions. So, pardon me, I'm going to have a drink while we wait. Like Chardonnay, extremely buttery or extremely oaky? Jennifer, you are a weird outlier in that. You're that one. Yeah, I know. Not until the video processes that you got to come back. I am asking for your faith and patience. It's true. But you will have to come back afterwards for those so that you can remind me. And usually the video processes within 20 to 30 minutes. So just FYI, just saying. It's not that bad. But yeah, Chardonnay is one of those weirdly divisive. We did a wine tasting where we compared what did we do? Chardonnay's 20 to 25. And that allowed us to at least get into the base Chablis price point. But if you really want to explore Chardonnay, you got to go to France. You got to go to Chablis, and you got to see what Burgundy has to offer in the world of some of these iconically amazing, truly top tier wines from the Burgundy Crus and Grand Crus. And these are big white wines that can last years, that are these delightful unfurling layers of minerality that are like a croissant full of seashells. They're amazing. And anyway, so great stuff, and definitely something we want to explore. But because of importing, because of allocation, because of prestige, you just start to hit good Chablis at $40, right? I mean, $20 Chablis are cool. You can find non-Chablis Burgundy whites. In other words, you can get Chardonnay from Burgundy, which is just southeast and very much bigger than Chablis, from places like Macon Village and places like that, Côte de Nuit, and get some pretty decent styles. They're not quite Chablis, but they're pretty darn close. I've got a great house one that I got from Total Wine Direct. It's about $10 a bottle, and it is a great example of a lean, lemon, minerally fun bomb. Not Jennifer's style at all. And that's where, Jennifer, you're definitely going to, France is never really going to be your friend, because A, very rarely do they oak, and B, they don't bring malolactic fermentation into it. Their pH in their wines and stuff just doesn't allow it, and they are not for that. All right. So John Carey, how far in advance do I choose a spotlight for these Wednesday videos? Generally speaking, I'm trying to be a week or two ahead. I'll go to the grocery store and I'll buy two or three bottles and kind of line up. But I'm always open to suggestions if you guys have something that you would like me to try and pick up. Remember though, the skill we're trying to teach is about label friendliness. This was a good example of exception, but there is that. So same thing with when it comes to the weekly tastings, the online tastings that we're doing on Zoom. Those panel, I come up with the concepts, but the Patreons are able to select the order in which we do them. I'm actually going to throw something out there here pretty soon to them that I'd like to target one wine and cheese show per month, one wine and food show per month, and 2 styles shows per month. And so I want to kind of alternate, basically doing a styles and a food, a styles and a food, and a styles and a food. So it'll be a little bit more rigid in function, but I want to hear from the crowd about which styles and stuff they want to hear from first, right? I like that. I love that feedback line. So everybody know about that. Donald's prefers her Chardonnay oaked. When you're in the middle, you get mad they didn't commit. Oh, Jennifer, you and your extremism, I tell you. So Rob is asking about the Rieslings on Friday. The answer is none. This is worldwide style for Rieslings, and the fact is, we're going to go to Alsace-Lorraine, we're going to go to we're going to go to the Yakima Valley in Washington, and we're going to go to the Clare Valley in Australia. All three areas where we're going to hammer in the concept that these are not sweet wines. Riesling does not necessarily equal sweet, and so these are crisp, dry, juicy Rieslings. That doesn't mean they're not going to be full of fruit, but generally, we're not going to be in that Auslese and upper sweetness style that you might find in the Mosel, Saarruhr, or Rheingau areas. So these are going to be clean, crisp, very, very different styles. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to focus on worldwide Rieslings, not just German Rieslings. I mean, we will eventually do a show on German Rieslings. And what we're going to do there is we're also going to spend a little bit of money, and we're going to get you guys out of the $10, $12 Rieslings that you get from Germany, and we're going to get you onto some estate stuff where these things are more complicated than a French art film and are delightful and interesting and just they've got a lot more depth than simply being this, green apple crisp sweet bomb. Right, which is what a lot of, by the way, there's no harm in that. These are great wines. I mean, I love an easy drinking Riesling. They're one of my gateway wines I use to get people off of really, truly sweet stuff like, Moscatos and pink Moscatos and whatever other jug wines. Rieslings are the gateway, right? Rieslings and then Chenin Blanc are great. Get into the fruit and get out of the sweet, right? And it's a great mode. So these are a good example. Corey talking about and Bordeaux. Wait a minute. And Bordeaux what? Good thing they make other wines in cognac and champagne. Yes, that's right. There's always champagne when you talk about Chardonnay is one of the big ones there. So, but also Pinot Noir, Blanc de Noir. So, snack recommendations. Are you asking about Friday? The snack recommendations are going to be high on the lighter side of things. Like I said, the wines are going to be crisp and clean, so we're going to want things that go along with it. But this is perfect opportunity for your fishes and light dishes. Stay away from cream sauces because we're going to have a little bit more high acidity than you're used to. Things that are toasty. I want to say, pine nuts and basil. Those are kind of be fun things. So when you say dry, how dry are they? Well, Mary, that sounds like there's a joke in there somewhere. I tell you how dry my Riesling is. It's so dry once upon a time. No, honest with you, the one odd thing about the wines this week, I was doing the wine research. That was what I was spending some of my time on today. I don't have good tech sheets, so I could not tell you an RS. So I can't tell you the functional numbers, but all of them are styled as dry. Alsace-Lorraine, we'll talk about, again, we got to go to the show to see all the cool stuff, but each one of these regions is kind of known for this style, right? So high acid, low sweetness, that's their thing. Liebfraumilch was our gateway wine in the 80s. Now, there's an interesting one. Liebfraumilch was and Schwarzkarte, right, Black Cat, were sadly bad examples or overly sweet examples of what German wine was in the 70s and 80s. And it got Liebfraumilch an awful reputation, whereas true, genuine Liebfraumilch is really something to behold. In fact, when I do the Riesling show for Germany, I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to find some quality Liebfraumilch as opposed to this, gateway level, overly sweet plonk that we were shipped here in the 70s and 80s. Teach asked if we could recommend some good ports that aren't budget killers. Yeah, tons of them. Come to the port show. I mean, I'm talking $15 to $20 bottles of port. I mean, the key is, we said the best ones are always pricey. This isn't my port primer. I'm going to do a port primer show that will get into the differences between the levels of port, right? So we're going to talk about rubies and tawnies on the 6th of June. But then we need to talk about LBVs and vintage ports. The big pricey ports that you generally see are vintage ports in nature. And there's a reason that they get pricey. It's because only about 70% of the time does a individual vintage year get declared a general vintage year from the Port Authority, which is different than the Port Authority, which handles the subway. But the authority on port, which I forget the name of off the top of my head, but the governing group that they all assign to, has to declare a general classification that everybody's wine was really well produced in a given year. and because they sit on those wines for time, that adds cost. Just ask anybody who owns a warehouse that when you sit on product, that's an overhead cost. I'll tell you now, though, in trying the difference, very many times, if it's from a reputable port producer and you look up the vintage notes on it, it's worth it, brother. It is good damn stuff, and it is not the same thing as getting even a 10 or 15 declassified ruby tawny or a recent LBV. They're good. I love those wines, but they're not the same. They're very much worth the price they're asking. My Riesling's so dry it parted the Red Sea. Oh, no, my Riesling's so dry it would float on the Dead Sea. There you go. Hey, right. So Carrie's got a good, John's got a good example there of, which is interesting. He's got an Australian tawny, which isn't actually a port, but it's a port style wine. My current go-to actually for affordably priced, jaw-droppingly good is Juarez Ultima 10-year port. It comes in a 500 ml format for $18.99, and it will absolutely leave your panties on the floor at the door. So, and went fancy pants at the restaurant for dessert and did tawny tasting of nice 10, 20, 30, and 40 year. That is a very cool wine, port vertical. That's a lot of fun. That's kind of something I would totally love to do. All right, guys, we're getting ready to wrap up on our time here. I wanted to say thank you guys for everything. As we've kind of referred to, Friday is Worldwide Riesling. Tickets are still available. Get yourself in there. Get yourself some snacks. Join us for a expanded version. Imagine doing a whole hour of just wine tasting, pairing notes, detailed. This is definitely level 2 stuff and very, very good for your wine education. I want you guys to go and come back and comment when you have the opportunity. Tell me about your wine club experiences. Tell me what you guys have been drinking. Give us a chance to have a conversation that's not just in the live chat. If you guys like what we're doing, please subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for other videos. We got new content comes out every Thursday. I encourage you to share with a wine-loving friend. If you guys like what I do, please tell a friend. And those of you that are of a truly keen mind, you can also support us up on Patreon. I want to thank my newest patrons, Donna Den and Dave and Mary. Thank you guys so much for your amazing generosity. I really love that you guys are supporting us, and it's people like you that make this project possible. We're going to have a lot of fun and just keep growing and learning more about the value and the education and the world of wine and your amazing and individual journey through it. So a shout out to our cellar level patron members, Barbara, Dan, Matthew, and now excellently Mary and her lovely husband, who, I still have a bottle of their Sauternes that I'm waiting to open. So anyway, thank you guys so very much. I will see you all very soon. Give us a shout out, and I hope to see you on one of our tastings soon. Until the next time, cheers from your WineShark. Wait for it. And scene.